everyone. Joe Biden gave his State of the Union address yesterday, and I'd actually like to respond as the future chair of LP National. The biggest thing on everyone's mind right now is the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. As libertarians, our position is to stay out of foreign conflicts and military entanglements. Superficially, it's easy to cheer for war. It's easy to say we should send our troops over there to defend Ukraine. And I understand the desire to defend people from foreign invaders, from violent conflicts, from being stripped of their rights, their currency, from having their lives turned upside down and ultimately taken from them. And I definitely share that desire. I don't want the people of Ukraine to be subjected to a foreign power that they have no desire to align with, or to be forced to defend themselves and go to war. But the logistics of our involvement in the Ukraine-Russia conflict are not as easy or clear as simply stating our position and our support on social media. United States military involvement means that we have to forcibly send US citizens overseas to die in a war that has nothing to do with them. And that's wrong. I hope one day we can transform our military into an organization that allows people to volunteer for specific projects, a military that's transparent and that takes better care of its troops. But we don't have that kind of system right now. I have no desire to force people to go fight and die in a war between two foreign countries. We don't need another Vietnam. We don't need more veterans suffering from PTSD. We don't need more death. We don't need any excuse to expand our bloated military budget and our wars for empire. And it's tough to make this sort of call. It's understandable that people are upset. War is an absolutely horrific thing to go through, and it's also a pretty horrible thing to witness, even from the sidelines. People feel pretty helpless. I do encourage people to contribute to fundraisers for the people suffering in Ukraine. I think one of the best things libertarians can do is to give aid to people in war-torn countries. Just take care to make sure that the organization you're giving to is going to be able to actually get the supplies and funding to the people who need it. And if you pray for the people in Ukraine. Do what you can to stay informed and try to educate other people on what's going on. And keep in mind, there is a lot of history to this crisis, and that is not being broadcast on mainstream media, and it was not covered by Biden's State of the Union address. NATO's encroachment upon the Russian border has definitely escalated this conflict. Choosing to side with either Russia's military or Ukraine's military is choosing to side between Russian military aggression into Ukraine or NATO's expansion around and into Russia. Remember, the US backed a Ukrainian coup in 2014 that had some really strong elements of neo-Nazism in its leadership. And that's nothing libertarians should support. The Ukraine-Russian border also has ethnic and cultural complexities that we're unfamiliar with in the United States. There's a lot going on, and it would behoove us to educate ourselves before we start making declarations of war or bombing people in another country. I'd also remind you that even carefully targeted drone strikes kill innocent civilians. We've seen it happen many times in the Middle East, so let's keep the blood off of our hands in this conflict. Biden addressed a lot of other things in his State of the Union address as well. He had a lot of words about infrastructure and jobs and American manufacturing. One of the best things we can do to make more jobs available to the American people is to remove regulatory barriers, which is not something that he mentioned. Regulatory barriers stifle innovation and creativity. We know that as libertarians. They don't make the world greener or more prosperous. They eliminate market competition and serve the interests of big business and government. The biggest hurdle to our financial progress and success in recent times were lockdowns. Let's never do that again. Never. The destruction of small businesses was one of the most anti-American, anti-working class policies I have ever personally witnessed. Biden also referenced economists and inflation. The best way to eliminate inflation is to what? It's to abolish the Federal Reserve. Eliminate their ability to print money on demand and to meddle with interest rates. Keynesian economics are damaging to the American people. We need to pursue a free market policy based on sound Austrian economics if we want Americans to be prosperous and have the ability to be able to lift themselves out of poverty. Upward economic mobility is part of the American dream. Biden also mentioned capping the cost of insulin and prescription drugs. He got a lot of cheers. A much better way to provide affordable medicine to people is to cut regulatory tape and end the monopoly of intellectual property. We know the FDA can do it. They were willing to fast-track experimental vaccines for COVID-19. Why can't we fast-track other much safer drugs? Things that have been on the market longer, things that are related to other drugs that we know are safer. Why can't we fully decriminalize cannabis at the federal level? Changes in these policies would provide a huge benefit to the American people. It would ease dependence on opioids, it would create new jobs, and probably save a lot of lives and stress. Biden also gave some lip service to tax cuts. He said, what did he say? Corporations and wealthy Americans should pay their fair share. Fair share. I don't believe that cutting people down is the right way to achieve economic justice. I don't believe we need to eliminate federal income tax entirely. I do believe we need to eliminate federal income tax entirely. I don't believe that you can tax yourself to prosperity. We should let people keep what they earn. And we should bring corporate jobs back to America so we can all prosper. And the way to do that is not by taxing them to death. It's by removing tax burdens. Biden said, what are we waiting for? I think that's what corporations are waiting for. They're waiting for doing business in America to become financially advantageous again. Biden and Trump have both grown the deficit to unprecedented heights. Let's stop taxing and spending. Let's keep our paychecks and stop asking government for bailouts. That would be really great for the American people. And lastly, capitalism is not exploitation, and it does not lead to monopolies. Capitalism, which is a beautiful economic system, allows people to pull themselves out of poverty, to pursue their dreams, and to provide for their families and plan for their future. Economic wealth is not a zero-sum game. When we pursue capitalist policies, we empower everyone to grow and to meet their own needs on their own terms. Minimum wage laws and government-subsidized education don't solve our problems. Just like inflation, they drive up prices, they create obsolescence for no reason, and they devalue services. I hope that one day we can get a proper libertarian State of the Union address in, but until then, we'll keep working on it. Oh, and lastly, you don't need Joe Biden to tell you you can go mask-free. Masks and vaccine mandates are a gross violation of your constitutional rights and your natural right to bodily autonomy. Anyone who tells you otherwise is just wrong. As a libertarian, I believe you're free to get vaccinated if you so choose. But I also recognize that the American people were lied to about the efficacy of the COVID-19 vaccines and their side effects. I won't shill for cronies' schemes that harm people. Use your best judgment when you inject yourself with questionable substances, whether it's a COVID vaccine or heroin. We are the party of personal choice after all. I'll leave it up to you. There's so much more that could be said about that crappy State of the Union. It was a terrible, pandering speech full of useless platitudes and lies. One day, I hope you'll get a proper libertarian State of the Union, but in the meantime, keep spreading the good word of liberty and keep refuting the lies and propaganda of morally bankrupt career politicians. They all suck, but you guys are great.